It's the last time you see pictures of all of the family together.
When that family was entering the house, he heard the gunshots.
911. Someone has just shot our neighbors. Who shot them? We don't know.
There was a small gun safe. It had been pried open. Was this just a home invasion that went bad?
Sit there and think, what kind of relationship did they actually have?
This is not the all-American family that everybody might think they are.
In my opening statement, I told the jury panel, you're about to hear a tale of subterfuge, deception, and greed.
December 2003, Sugar Land, Texas. Kent and Tricia Whitaker and their two sons, Bart and Kevin, have called this affluent suburb home for more than a decade. It's a perfect fit for their upscale lifestyle.
Sugar Land was an amazing place to grow up. It was a community focused on faith, focused on friendships, relationships, a really tight-knit community. The Whitaker family was a pillar in the community. I attended a private school there in Sugar Land, and Kevin did too, and we were fast friends. The Whitaker family did so much together, whether it be fishing trips or camping trips, times on the lake. Kent and Tricia maintained that really sweet closeness with their kids and that high level of trust and communication. They loved to experience life as a family.
I was the Whitakers' next door neighbor. They were very normal, kind, empathetic people. They seemed not troubled, unburdened. Life is good. That was my general vibe.
To friends and neighbors, the Whitakers seem to have it all. A happy family where 19-year-old Kevin looks up to his 23-year-old brother, Bart.
Kevin was very humble. He was a man of integrity, of character, incredibly honest. The guy was smart, very engaging. Bart was a little bit more quiet. You didn't know necessarily what he was thinking like you did Kevin.
Kent Whitaker is the co-owner of a thriving construction company. A hard worker, his financial success means he can provide his family with everything they might want. His wife, Tricia, is a dedicated part-time elementary school teacher.
She loved and knew every kid in every class every single year. And the interesting part was that she didn't have to work, right, because of Kent's job. But it told you a lot about her heart.
On December 10th, 2003, Kent and Tricia plan a special night out for the family to celebrate Bart's graduation from Sam Houston State University. At dinner, they present their son with a $4,000 Rolex watch as a graduation gift.
I know what a Rolex cost, and he bought a Rolex as a graduation gift. That's not an everyday thing.
Kent is a proud dad and takes photos so they'll have a permanent record of Bart's achievement.
I've seen this. I've seen those. Sitting there smiling like that. Very happy.
It's the last time you see pictures of all of the family together.
Someone has just shot our neighbors. Who shot them? We don't know.
I was there when they died. That was real, and I can't necessarily make sense of what I saw that night. I was sitting at my computer. I heard gunshots. I immediately dart out the front door. I get about midway down our sidewalk, and I see Kent Whitaker laid on his back. You could see his body lit up by their front porch lights. And he was saying, Brandon, we've been shot. Call 911.
What kind of injuries did I have? I don't know. They just been shot.
Brandon's father, Cliff Stanley, rushes to the house and discovers that Kent Whitaker has been shot in the chest.
My dad runs out and starts rendering aid. I mean, multiple trips back and forth with house, just doing what we can. It felt awful. It was gruesome. It was a horror movie.
While police race to the scene, another 911 call comes from inside the Whitaker home. It's Bart Whitaker.
I've been shot. Where is your wound? In the arm, my shoulder. I think I can't reach my arm. Okay, who else has been shot in the house with you? It's my mom and my dad and my brother. Oh, God, I can't. I need you to hang on, Bart. I've got help on the way, okay? Do you know who shot you? No. Dark in here. Okay, when he left, Bart, did he leave out your back door? Yeah, I chased him that way.
When I arrived on scene, it was very chaotic. There was ambulances, there were multiple police cars, fire trucks, a helicopter.
When detectives arrive at the Whitaker home, they find Kent Whitaker hanging on to life.
EMS personnel had went in. They had taken vitals for Kevin Whitaker, and he was pronounced deceased. Patricia Whitaker was flown by helicopter to a Houston hospital, and we were told she died en route to the hospital. Bart Whitaker had been shot. He was being medically treated by EMS. 2 people were shot. Another 2 people were dead. So we knew within the first hour that it was a double murder.
Kent Whitaker and his son Bart are rushed to a nearby hospital. Detectives quickly arrive to get a statement from Bart, since he is the only one conscious. Bart tells them that the family had just arrived home from their celebratory dinner when he realized he forgot something.
Bart Whitaker had reported that he had actually walked out to his truck to retrieve a cell phone. But when the rest of the family was entering the house, there was a guy that was inside that house. So he heard the gunshots. Bart reported he had chased the shooter through the home and out the back of the house and been shot by the offender. We had had several home invasion robberies. So the thought initially was, are they connected? Was this just a home invasion that went bad?
But something doesn't quite add up.
Probably the biggest thing that stuck out to us was every drawer in the rooms were pulled out exactly even with each other.
So this burglar basically purposely, I'm gonna pull out every drawer about this, so it'll make it look like I was trying to look for stuff. But you weren't looking for anything. You were just pulling out drawers. The officers immediately knew that.
To the investigators, seems to have the hallmarks of a staged burglary. Nothing appears to have been stolen.
There were electronics, there were computers, there was TVs. There was a Rolex watch that was found. There didn't appear to be anything taken. So things didn't add up exactly to being some type of burglary.
Burglars come in and leave within minutes. They smash everything they can, pick up everything in 3 minutes. That's what happens. They don't sit there and wait for people to come home and walk in through the front door and shoot them. It just doesn't happen.
While investigators try to make sense of why the Whitakers were gunned down, they realize they have another pressing matter in front of them.
We had a vague description of a dark figure that ran up through the back of the house. And now this person is loose in the neighborhood. So are they on foot? Did they get picked up by a car? Did they drive a car there and now they've driven away? Or are they hiding in someone's backyard and they've already shot 4 people? The public's in danger, and we were in a very tough spot. Where is he, or where could he be?
Police try to unravel a bewildering attack.
I crawled around for a bit,
I really didn't know where I was hit. It just felt wrong.
And discover details of an inconceivable plot.
I was at the police station late one night, and there was a knock on the back door.
Do you have any idea who did the shooting?
Who did the shooting?
All the puzzle pieces just immediately connected, and realizing, gosh, the worst possible explanation for this is true.
As police in Sugar Land, Texas begin investigating the shooting at the Whitaker home, news travels fast in the tight-knit community.
I got a call from a friend. He's like, hey, there's been an incident, there's been a shooting. It was Kevin who had passed away, and Trisha had passed away as well. It was the most horrendous thing possible. And so at that moment, there's so much happening, you can't reconcile anything. You can't process, you can't grieve. It's just all hell's broken loose. December 10th, 2003 was a day that is burned in my memory.
I don't feel like I ever did process it. I just kind of did what I had to do and kept moving forward. It was just shocking. Sugar Land is incredibly safe. It's the kind of place where you don't even hesitate to take a walk at 3 a.m. It definitely made me more aware of my surroundings, of what's capable from people.
You know, the first question is what happened? What went down? And then why?
Detectives are urgently pursuing those answers at the Whitaker home. As they search through the house, they find a weapon and 4 empty shell casings.
There was a gun that was found in the kitchen area, which was odd. It's probably the murder weapon. Usually we don't find that the offender leaves the murder weapon on the scene. But it was an advantage for us, because now we had the possibility maybe for fingerprints, for DNA, for other types of evidence that could be recovered from this gun. In one of the upstairs rooms, nothing in that room appeared to be touched at all, except for there was a small gun safe. It had been pried open. You could see pry marks around the frame. It was empty.
The gun safe was a small little box, maybe a foot by foot, tucked into a hidden area. Whoever did this knew what to look for and knew what was in the safe.
The discovery leads the investigators to question how familiar the killer was with the Whitaker family and their home.
It was odd that someone had this small gun safe out of this whole big house. Why weren't the computers disturbed? Why weren't the TVs taken? It just didn't make sense. So our job was to try to find out how many people were involved with this.
Most people are killed by people who know them. 78, 80%. It's very strange you have stranger on stranger. It just doesn't occur that much.
Three days after the murders, police are still scouring the evidence for leads on a motive or suspect when Bart Whitaker is discharged from the hospital. His father, Kent, is still in intensive care. Despite the trauma he's just endured, Bart agrees to assist detectives by returning home to relive that terrifying night. The investigators hope he can remember something that will lead them to the killer.
It's 7:54 p.m. Officer DuBose is going to be playing the part of the suspect, and I'm turning it over to Bart for his direction of everyone.
We went through the crime, trying to figure out exactly what happened.
I was here when I was calling 911. I might have fallen forward
Okay.
right after I was shot.
Okay.
I crawled around for a bit. I really didn't know where I was hit. It just felt wrong. I mean, I couldn't move. The My arm, I tried to push off before, and my arm wasn't working. I thought maybe I was hitting the side because it burned.
So he went out the back door? Did you see him leave that back door?
No.
Okay.
No, I just don't remember.
They had him reenact the scene. And people generally, when it comes to crimes, they try to be very specific. Like he was standing here or something like that. And his was, well, I don't remember, it was this way, or it could have been this way.
When the shot was fired, did you see any flashes of light?
I don't remember.
You ever physically make contact with the suspect?
I don't think so. I don't know what I was trying to do. I know I was just trying to grab it. I think I got to him.
He was very vague about things you think he would remember.
At that point, we had no leads. We had just a family of 4 that had been shot, 2 that were deceased.
They came home at the wrong time, in the wrong place. That's the story that you typically hear, right? That's the initial reaction. It's just incredibly unfortunate, right? How does this even occur in Sugar Land?
Detectives investigating the murders of Tricia Whitaker and her son Kevin in Sugar Land, Texas, believe their killer was familiar with the Whitaker home and may not have been trying to rob them.
So we started doing a background on the family. The domestic relationship between Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker was nothing but perfect that we could find out. And every friend or family that we had interviewed said they had a great relationship.
Detectives turned their focus on the Whitakers' murdered son, 19-year-old Kevin.
Was he targeted for some reason? Was he involved in something that he shouldn't have been? But he had no criminal history. As we were interviewing friends and family members, Kevin seemed to be a good kid, and he was a tragic victim.
Detectives also take a closer look at the other Whitaker son, 23-year-old Bart, who was wounded in the attack and is their primary witness. It was his graduation from college that was being celebrated shortly before the murders.
Bart was supposed to graduate that coming Saturday. So we had contacted Sam Houston State University, and we were told he wasn't graduating. As a matter of fact, he was a freshman as far as their academic rating, and he had like a 1.4 GPA. So we had a story that he was giving us that wasn't matching reality.
He was lying about going to school for the past 3 years. And so they zeroed in on him.
It sure seemed at the time it was too coincidental that this big family event had occurred, and then they get home from this event and they're all shot. So was Bart involved with what had happened? Was he not involved? We had to gather evidence.
Investigators want to keep what they've learned about Bart Whitaker under wraps until they can either clear him or tie him to the murders. But a local newspaper covering the case has also learned of his deceit and runs the story. Bart's father, Kent, still recovering in the hospital, is stunned and can't understand why Bart would lie.
Kent's response to it was, why didn't he tell us this? I just wish he would have, let the music stop and confess this to us.
How could you not know your kid's not going to college? So you sit there and think, what kind of relationship did they actually have?
Six days after the murders of his mother and brother, his father joined more than 1,000 friends and family at the funeral.
Gosh, that was a brutal day. I remember seeing Kent and Bart sitting on the front row and watching them and, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? Just gutted for them and heartbroken for them.
We had multiple detectives that were there. We had actually had some recording devices that were placed around the area because there could be comments made. Because sometimes the parties involved go to the funerals, but we didn't find anything at all.
As the family mourns, Sugar Land police continue to focus on the questions that have arisen about Bart.
We had discovered that Bart had some involvement with the criminal justice system already. We had found a 2001 incident report from the Waco Police Department that there was a female subject that was in an apartment with Bart Whitaker, and she overheard him talking about wanting to kill his dad. We had an officer that actually went out to the house. It was early in the morning and made contact with both Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker and told them why he was there. But they didn't believe Bart would be involved with something like that.
Later on, when the father finally talks, he says, we're just talking about the Menendez brothers. It wasn't anything serious at all. And so the father just believes him. And that's it.
In the days after the murders, life seems to return to some semblance of normalcy for Bart and his father, at least from the outside.
And they were still living in the same house together where two of their family members died. And the suspicion is growing that Bart was involved.
It wasn't life as normal, but from the outside, it was a dad and a son who had gone through this tragic event, locking arms and leaning into one another.
We had to determine how much are we going to tell Mr. Whitaker, because his life still could be in jeopardy with Bart still being around. And we didn't tell him everything. We tried to be as honest as we could with him.
There were maybe a few times that Kent would say, hey, they're still trying to find the guy, or they're still looking into it.
Mr. Whitaker was in a very hard position at that point. Slowly, kind of the bow's starting to unravel here, where there's information about his only living son that, at least initially, isn't adding up.
Police know Bart Whitaker didn't pull the trigger, but they strongly suspect he is involved in the murders of his family.
Bart was very manipulative with friends, and that was information that we received as the investigation went on. That's when the intensity ramped up into trying to identify who does he currently hang around with and where were they at on December 10th of 2003. This is not the all-American family that everybody might think they are.
Detectives in Sugar Land, Texas suspect Bart Whitaker knows more than he's saying about the murders of his mother and brother, and in fact, may be involved in the crime. But they have been unable to find any solid evidence supporting their suspicions. Then, a week after the murders, as investigators contemplate their next move, an unexpected visitor drops by the police station.
The lead detective was at the police station late one night, and there was a knock on the back door. It was a gentleman by the name of Adam Hipp.
Adam Hipp tells the detective that he briefly went to college with Bart Whitaker, and he wants police to know that Bart's statement about killing his parents in 2001 was far from the joke he claimed it was.
He said, listen, Bart Whitaker talked to me about killing his family before, back in 2001.
Adam tells police that Bart claimed once his parents and brother were dead, he would receive all of the family's assets, including their home and life insurance policies worth over $1 million. He says Bart offered him a cut if he would be his trigger man.
The detective had Mr. Hipp actually draw a map that showed where he was supposed to stand inside the house, and he would shoot the family members as they walked in. And that's exactly what happened on December 10th, 2003. Adam Hipp started working for us. We had him make recorded phone calls with Bart Whitaker to get him to talk about the crime.
Detectives coach Adam to tell Bart he knows he killed his parents, and then threaten to go to the police with this information unless he receives $20,000.
And that's when Bart Whitaker says, "Yeah, I can pay you. I can pay you some money," basically.
Bart never really came out directly and said, I did it, but there were enough indicators there.
My opinion, we had probable cause to arrest Bart Whitaker on basically what we had with Adam Hipp coming in. We did have that. Do we have enough to prosecute him and convict him? No. We didn't have any details.
But Adam Hipp's call to Bart points the investigators to someone else who may be able to help them build their case.
When Adam Hipp is on the phone, Bart Whitaker mentions Chris Brashear. And what is Bart Whitaker? Chris is going to keep his mouth shut.
Adam tells police that Chris Brashear is a former roommate of Bart's. Detectives track down Chris and bring him in for questioning.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you coming down. Yeah, man.
After establishing the relationship between Bart and Chris, detectives hone in on the night of the murder.
Do you have any idea who did the shooting?
Who did the shooting?
Yeah, any ideas at all?
Man, I mean, it's a pretty gross incident to me. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, it's kind of a blunt question.
Has Bart ever approached you about killing his family?
No.
He's never talked to you about that or anything like that?
No.
Never even joked around about it?
No.
So, did you go anywhere that night?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Went to set. Hooters?
Who?
Yeah, that's right.
And it was you and Steven?
It was, yeah, Steven, his girlfriend, and myself. Yeah.
Investigators believe that Chris Brashear is lying to them. They learn that Steven is Steve Champagne, another former roommate of Bart's. And if Chris is providing Steve as a false alibi, detectives consider whether he might be involved as well.
Steve Champagne is enlisted in the Marines. We're looking at cell phone records, financial records. So who is communicating with who?
Police quickly locate Steve and bring him in for questioning.
Now, they say they don't know anything about it. They denied anything. So at least that's where they start.
Finally, as pressure grows, the story begins to change.
I think Steve Champagne, his conscience finally got to him. Then he let out a little information about, well, maybe I was involved.
Do you feel partly responsible?
Well, yeah.
Stephen Champagne changed his story and confessed.
Steve tells the detectives that Bart convinced him and Chris Brashear to join a plot to kill his family, so he could inherit his parents' fortune. Steve admits he was the getaway driver, and Chris Brashear was the trigger man.
He had taken Chris Brashear over to the house, parked his car a street or two over behind the house. Chris hid inside the house and shot the family members as they walked in on December 10th of 2003.
Did Chris say where he found the gun in the house?
No, I remember hearing something about a safe or something like that, but I don't know for sure.
Who do you think is the most responsible?
Probably Chris for shooting him. I mean, Bart planning it, yeah.
The big piece of information, evidence-wise, that Steve was able to provide to us is they had a bag that had a lot of evidence from the crime, walkie-talkies, water bottle, ammunition, that they tossed into Lake Conroe.
This is a big lake, man-made lake. They throw that in there. Now, what would be the odds of somebody being able to find that?
Steve Champagne, a suspect in the murders of Tricia and Kevin Whitaker, claims a bag full of crucial evidence was tossed into Lake Conroe, 50 miles north of Houston, and agrees to the spot.
The police department with their scuba tank, they go out and look for it. In water, you can't see your hand in front of you. They found the damn thing.
Inside the bag, detectives find the tool used to break into the Whitakers' gun safe.
They even found the pry bar, and they managed to match it up by the scrape marks. They even found the cell phone they were using. Now, you tell me what kind of police work that is. God bless.
There was DNA that was recovered that was crisper shears from a water bottle. There was ammunition that was consistent with the ammunition that was involved that killed the family. Tangible physical evidence that links these individuals to this crime.
With the evidence now in hand, detectives have what they need to confront Bart. But he's nowhere to be found.
Bart Whitaker's Tahoe was found in an apartment complex in Houston. Both of the doors were found open. We sent detectives to the scene. We believe he's on the run.
We just lost him. People don't run when they're innocent, they really don't. Flight is a very good indication of guilt.
Kent Whitaker told us that there was money that was taken from the house. So Bart had some money to survive. Our job was now to figure out where he was.
The news of Bart's disappearance is one more shock for his friends and family, already devastated by the murders.
That was the big kind of aha moment, was when Bart left. So that's really when everything, all the puzzle pieces just immediately connected. And I realized, gosh, the worst possible explanation for this is true.
It's too much to really break it down into a coherent single thought. Shock, disgust, and disbelief almost that someone could plot and plan out something like this.
Police send out a nationwide alert to be on the lookout for Bart Whitaker. With the cash taken from his home, he could be anywhere. Meanwhile, Steve Champagne and Chris Brashear are charged with first-degree murder for the deaths of Tricia and Kevin Whitaker.
These were kids that came from great backgrounds, but were manipulated by Bart Whitaker to kill his family. And they went along with it because Bart had promised them a cut in his inheritance. And he had told them that, hey, it's going to take a little while, but I am going to give you some money.
For months, there are no leads to Bart's whereabouts.
So we worked with Crime Stoppers to put out that we were looking for the whereabouts of Bart Whitaker.
There's a Crime Stoppers award of $10,000. If you get information that leads to this arrest, we'll pay you 10 grand.
18 months after the murders, police get a call from a man named Rudy Rios.
Rudy Rios said that he had known Bart Whitaker and he knew where Bart Whitaker was because Bart Whitaker had assumed his identity and he went to Mexico.
Rudy Rios claims Bart paid him $3,000 to be transported to Mexico, and that Bart has been living there for more than a year.
Bart Whitaker shacks up with a female and begins a relationship with her.
Mexican officials agree to cooperate with American law enforcement. Almost 2 years after the murders, they track Bart down, and on September 24th, 2005, he is returned to the U.S.
We call up Ken Whitaker, said that he's going to be getting out of Mexico, but there was no deals made whatsoever. They just got him out. Put him back here and put him in jail. We had already made a decision. The only person we were seeking the death penalty was the mastermind, Bart Whitaker.
But Bart's defense attorneys work to thwart the possibility of a death sentence. At the heart of their strategy is Kent Whitaker.
Mr. Whitaker did not want the state of Texas to put his son to death, which is usually just kind of a reverse of roles where the family wants the maximum.
To forgive somebody of doing the most horrendous thing possible serves as a model of forgiveness, something I think about all the time.
His standard was, I believe he's changed, and I'm going to forgive him. My standard is, he hasn't changed, and you can't forgive him.
All rise.
Bart Whitaker's capital murder trial begins on March 3, 2007, some 3.5 years since the killings at his family's home.
In my opening statement, I told the jury panel, you're about to hear a tale of subterfuge, deception, and greed, which will lead you to one conclusion, that Bart Whitaker had his family murdered. And that's the only conclusion he got.
Prosecutors put admitted getaway driver Steve Champagne on the stand. He explains how Bart outlined his murder for cash scheme.
The conversation was about when the family came back from eating dinner, that Chris would be in the house and shoot them.
The jury hears that Bart staged a fight with the gunman, and they'd agreed in advance Bart would be shot in the arm to divert suspicion. The trial lasts 6 days before the case goes to the jury on March 8, 2007. They deliberate for just an hour and a half before coming to a unanimous decision.
The guilty verdict was very quick.
Now the jury must decide whether Bart Whitaker should live or die.
Call your next witness. Bart Whitaker. He needs to be sworn, gentlemen.
Bart didn't testify during his trial, but now, in the penalty phase, makes a last-ditch effort to save his life.
Please stand before the clerk to be sworn.
Bart Whitaker has been convicted of murdering his mother and brother. Now he's trying to convince the jury not to sentence him to death.
Was testifying, I actually had the defendant admit that he had no reason to hate his parents, but he did it anyway.
The only people I've ever hated, and I know it was not for the right reasons, but the only people I ever hated were my parents and my brother.
The prosecutor confronts Bart with his family's final moments, the photos taken by his father at the celebration for Bart's supposed graduation. He tells the jury one photo from that night is particularly disturbing.
He shoots a finger at him while he's doing it. Now, some people don't make that much of it. I'm sitting there going, you understand something? He's shooting a finger at him knowing they're going to be dead. It's very chilling.
The jury deliberates for 10 hours before sentencing Bart Whitaker to death.
It's a hard question, and people have a lot of opinions about it because they're removed from it. But when you know the people and you've been involved with them, and definitely as intimately involved with this entire murder as I was, you see things a little different. Because I believe Bart should have received the death penalty.
Bart's accomplices agree to plea deals. Triggerman Chris Brashear is sentenced to life behind bars, and Steve Champagne, the getaway driver, receives a lighter 15-year sentence for cooperating as a key witness.
How do you even begin to broach that conversation with someone? Like, there's no icebreaker for, hey, will you help me kill my family? It's brought me to the conclusion that evil is real, very tangible, and it has a long plan behind it, and I truly think Bart is evil.
Over the next decade, Kent Whitaker remarries and builds a new life. He continues to fight to get his son's death sentence commuted.
Kent Whitaker never said he was okay with what Bart did. He always said he should be punished, okay? But he didn't like us seeking the death penalty. That was it.
When are exhausted, his execution is scheduled for 6 p.m. on February 22nd, 2018. Then, with just 30 minutes until Bart is set to die, Texas Governor Greg Abbott grants him clemency.
and left. And I found on the news that they commuted to life.
I'll never forget the night that the news came out. I never forget that moment of seeing Kent break down. Man, it was over a decade of emotions. For me, I was on the side of commuting the sentence. Should he ever see the light of day? Absolutely not. That's a no-brainer.
One day, Kent's gonna die. And Bart will have no one left fighting for him, talking to him, coming to see him. And he'll have to live the rest of his life suffering like that. So I think he would have gotten off easy with the death penalty in this regard.
Trisha was gold. I find myself getting emotional thinking back to her. She cared for us. She loved us. She was invested in our lives. I miss Trisha dearly. I'm gutted that Kevin is gone. You know, Kevin was not a typical 18, 19-year-old, right? He wasn't a typical high schooler. He was always wiser than us. There was something in the yearbook our senior year. It was most likely to succeed, most athletic. His was who was the best, most humble, highest integrity human being, and it was Kevin. I started thinking about where would Kevin be now? I think that's what I still probably grieve, is not having that friendship for life.
She's walking at a quick pace. You can tell that she's comfortable with nobody behind her. And within minutes, she has vanished into thin air.
I said, "What do you mean they can't find her?"
Her mother, Dawn, left Rochester for Myrtle Beach after Brittanee disappeared.
Helicopters, ATVs, horseback.
I saw what was like to lose a child.
I had to find my daughter, and I wasn't going to stop until I got answers.
April 2009. Brittanee Drexel, a 17-year-old high school junior, is living life to the fullest as an outgoing young woman in her hometown of Rochester, New York.
Brittanee was just an awesome kid. Very happy, carefree. She was very popular in school. Everybody just loved her.
We met through some mutual friends. Started hanging out like normal teenagers. She just loved going and doing things. She wasn't somebody that liked to sit still.
When she was younger, Brittanee was very sassy. Loved to perform in front of people. She used to sing, and she would put on shows for us in the backyard. She was a great kid.
When Brittanee turned 7, the Drexel family welcomes another child, Marissa.
When Marissa came along, she was very excited to have a little sister, and she was like a second mom. She would always help me. She would want to hold her all the time. She would want to feed her and play with her, and she loved being a big sister.
Bond where we could just lay and talk about things, or we could have those mother-like-daughter talks with each other, and she was always there when I needed her.
6 years after Marissa was born, Camden came along, so, and Brittanee was a lot older. Like, Camden was her baby. Like, she just adored Camden.
My sister was a social butterfly. She had millions, billions of friends. She was full of energy. She was a spitfire. She was full of, I don't know what word I want to use. She was full of life.
That year, Brittanee starts dating her first real boyfriend, a classmate named John Greco.
When we first met him, he had come over to the house because he wanted Brittanee to go to prom with him. You know, she was going on 16, and we said, well, sure, bring him over, you know, we'll meet him and stuff. John came from a great family. His parents are super nice, and Brittanee adored him.
She had a lot of big dreams and goals. She wanted to move out of Rochester. That was a huge thing.
My sister was into fashion.
Brittanee liked making clothes. She had quite a few drawings. She would like dye jeans like with bleach, and her friends would buy them and stuff, and she also wanted to model. She said, I'm gonna have like 6 kids and my husband's gonna stay home with them and I'm gonna go to work. And I'm like, yeah, good luck with that.
When Brittanee is in her junior year, her parents decide to divorce. It throws her into a tailspin.
She was upset about the divorce going on. It hurt, you know, and of course, as a child, you're going through emotions, and, you know, there was a lot of emotion there.
It took a while for Brittanee to come down when she was angry, to come down from it. There was a lot going on at that time, and a lot of her schoolwork was falling behind, and so, Brittanee had asked about going to Myrtle Beach.
Spring break here, everyone leaves. It's either still really cold, wintry, or it's rain and gloomy out. Myrtle Beach was a party scene, big city for teenagers who wanted to go out and have fun on their young adulthood.
I told her, I said, Brittanee, I don't think that's a good idea. I said, you know, I want you to get caught up in your schoolwork. She's like, well, Mom, I want to go to Myrtle Beach. And I just told her, you know, you're not going. And she goes, why, Mom? I said, you're not going to Myrtle Beach. I said, there's no parental supervision. I said, I don't know the kid you're going with. And I said, something's going to happen to you. And Brittanee said, Mom, nothing's gonna happen to me, I'll be fine. And I said, well, Brittanee, you're not going. So about an hour later, she said, Mom, since it's my spring break, can I go stay at my friend's house? And I told her it was okay for her to stay there.
On the night of April 22nd, 2009, unbeknownst to her family, Brittanee and 2 classmates, Alana and Jennifer, began a 13-hour drive to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
I had called her and I said, Britt, what are you doing? And she's like, well, you know, I'm gonna go to my friend's house, we're gonna watch a movie or whatever. And she says, I love you. And I told her, I said, I love you too.
Me and my mom thought she was here, but in reality, she wasn't. I told her I missed her. And then I said, wait, before you hang up, I want to say goodbye, I love you, one more time. It's the last time I heard her voice.
With her family still none the wiser, the girls arrive at the resort town on the morning of April 23rd. But as her sister will later learn, after 2 days at the beach, Brittanee's spring break isn't going as planned.
She was texting John. John couldn't go because he was working, so he had to stay back. But John knew the whole time.
On Saturday evening, April 25th, Brittanee texts John that she needs a break from the girls she traveled with.
The girls she went down with, I think, were a year or 2 older than her. And because they're girls, they're young teenage girls, and they were fighting. She told John she felt alienated and alone. She wanted to come back home.
Brittanee tells John that she ran into one of her classmates, Peter Brazowitz, and has decided to go visit him at his hotel. Around 9:15 p.m., Brittanee abruptly stops texting John. It's unlike her, so he worriedly calls her family.
John said, Brittanee's in Myrtle Beach and they can't find her. I said, what do you mean they can't find her? I was livid. I said, I can't believe she went to Myrtle Beach because she had never done that in the past, like lied to me or anything like that. John came to my house. We were calling the kids that were in Myrtle Beach. The girls wouldn't answer their phone. I kept calling Brittanee's phone. And it would ring, and it would ring, and then it went directly to voicemail. Every time I called Peter, Peter answered the phone every single time. But he's like, I'm not her babysitter. And at that point, I said, you know, we need to get in touch with Myrtle Beach Police Department.
Dawn calls the Myrtle Beach police to report Brittanee is missing. But she doesn't stop there. She decides to drive to South Carolina herself.
My mom said, listen, you're going to go with your dad for a couple days. I have to go. And all of a sudden, I went to go look at my phone. There's a mass text sent out from John Greco. And it's my sister's picture and missing information. And I said, what is this? Then I started crying. I'm shocked that I'm like, Brittanee's missing. I was in a state of shock.
We got everything together. I think we left about maybe 11 the next morning, and it was a long ride. My phone was blowing up with her friends. They're calling me, crying, screaming, you know, where's Brittanee? As soon as I would hang up with someone, my phone would ring again. Like, all I knew is I had to find my daughter, and I wasn't gonna stop until I got answers.
A mother embarks on a relentless quest.
I said, I'm done with the bull. I said, I want my daughter found.
While the police drill down on one suspect after another.
But I say you didn't, okay? I say you didn't know it.
There wasn't enough to arrest him. And he said, you're smart, you'll figure it out.
It felt like a roller coaster. You're just like, is she ever gonna be found?
After learning that her daughter Brittanee Drexel is missing in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, her mom, Dawn, immediately begins driving there from her home in upstate New York, 800 miles away.
So I get to Myrtle Beach and I go to the police station.
But officers tell Dawn that with no evidence of a crime, there's little law enforcement can do. When she describes the argument she had with her daughter about spring break, they suggest that could be why Brittanee isn't responding to calls and texts.
You've got bits of evidence that's saying she ran away from home, she rebelled against her mama, it's the day before she's supposed to go back, the idea that a young girl has just run away. But it is something that the police consider every time.
My mom knew my sister was not a runaway. No matter how much bad was going on in my sister's life at that point, she knew my sister wouldn't have ran away.
After failing to gain any traction with law enforcement, Dawn decides to take a different approach.
I go straight to the media. I went to Channel 13 and, you know, I said, my daughter's missing. You know, I want to get her name and face out there.
Her mother, Dawn, left Rochester for Myrtle Beach after Brittanee disappeared.
To feel, you know, that you don't know where your child is. You don't know if they're alive. You don't know if they're hurt. It's horrible.
Figured I'd be able to find her, you know, and I'd have her back in a couple days and we'd just go home. And we just started looking everywhere, like on Ocean Boulevard, and talking to people, seeing if people seen her, showed her picture, and we were putting posters up. So we did that probably for about a good solid week.
As Dawn continues to search, her media efforts catch the attention of the police and spurs them to begin by interviewing the last person Dawn believes saw Brittanee on the night she vanished, her classmate, Peter.
Peter was a little bit snarky, like, don't bother me. And the police were thinking, everybody wants to help. He doesn't want to be bothered. He said, I did know Brittanee. I had met Brittanee. We had hung out. We had texted back and forth, but I didn't have anything to do with her disappearance.
Peter claimed his hotel. He was hanging out with friends all night. While detectives check out his alibi, they also seek out anyone else known to have been in contact with Brittanee in Myrtle Beach, including the girls she drove with from New York.
They went through each and every one of Brittanee's friends for the short time that she was here, and they really scoured everything about them, and they were able to rule them out.
Peter's alibi also checks out.
He was able to show that everything that he was telling them was true.
But the investigation into Peter does lead detectives to a major discovery. His hotel, the Blue Water Resort, has surveillance cameras, captured images of Brittanee on the evening of April 25th. Brittanee enters the hotel at 8:33 p.m. and she appears again, exiting at 8:48 p.m.
As far as we knew, that was the last time that anybody had seen her. You can tell that she's walking at a fairly quick pace with nobody behind her. She's comfortable, but she's determined to get to wherever she is going.
It's just after leaving the hotel that Brittanee exchanges her final texts with her boyfriend, John, at 8:58 p.m., expressing her desire to come home.
Within minutes, she has basically vanished into thin air.
Investigators request Brittanee's cell phone records, hoping they might shed light on her whereabouts.
He did a tower dump back from the day that Brittanee went missing on all of the cell towers.
The cell phone records arrive a week after Brittanee's disappearance. At 11:57 on the night of April 25th, Brittanee's phone pings near the North Santee River in McClellanville, a small town 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach. That's nearly 3 hours after the surveillance video shows Brittanee leaving the Blue Water Hotel.
They started searching in a very heavily wooded area for her. I mean, helicopters, ATVs, horseback. It was overwhelming because it's a forest where they were looking for her. And they told me if she was put out there, you know, she would be probably dead within 6 hours because of the wild boar, the alligators, just all the wild animals. But you have to have hope. You have to have faith.
Everybody was there. There was a lot of people that were looking for her. It was a needle in a haystack.
Police are searching for missing teenager Brittanee Drexel in a heavily wooded region of South Carolina, after cell phone data shows her phone pinged in the area. It's 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach, where Brittanee had snuck away for spring break.
I was just in shock, and I just wanted my sister to come back home.
I tried so hard just to keep thinking, you know, maybe she's still out there. They searched and they didn't find anything. After that, I had stayed in Myrtle Beach for a good month and a half.
My mom was in distress. Even though there was searchers there, she just felt like she had to do it. That's her firstborn. That's her baby. She had to find her. At least know what happened.
Hope is strange. I'd like to say in the beginning, it got me through. Because I was convinced Brittanee was coming home.
I left at the end of June, and then I went back to Rochester. But I was calling law enforcement every day. I just wanted to find my daughter.
Days, weeks, months, and then years pass with no answers for Brittanee's family and friends.
I felt like nothing was going on in Brittanee's case. This went on for years. I mean, you're talking, she went missing in 2009. I can tell you, the ball was dropped here. The police wanted me to go away. And I felt like I had to just keep after them and after them and after them. And I didn't care if I was bugging them. I don't care. You're gonna answer to me. I am her mother.
Dawn was desperate for answers. She felt like she wasn't getting cooperation from the police. Imagine trying to put yourself in the position. She's a mom. She's been thrust into of not just the justice system, but trying to maneuver. You're dealing with law enforcement. You're dealing with media. And it's a very foreign and frightening place. I put myself more in a role of, let me help her get her story told.
I held on to just a little bit of hope that she was still alive because I always went back to we didn't have anything.
Dawn Drexel wouldn't quit. She drove all of us crazy. She called me every single day since 2011. It didn't matter if it was Christmas. It didn't matter what time of day it was. And I always answered the phone. Some of my friends would say, you have no boundaries with this woman. And I would say, I can't. I saw what it was like to lose a child. I sat there with her, and nobody would help her.
After more than 2 years with no answers, on August 1st, 2011, out of the blue, Myrtle Beach police receive a strange and stunning call from a young woman. The story she tells concerns her father, a man named Ray Moody.
She said, I think my dad had something to do with Brittanee Drexel's disappearance. Mr. Moody, his main girlfriend was Angel, and there was a time that Angel called over there one night and said that Ray was going to get all of them locked up because of what he had done to that girl.
So you guys were dating at the time?
Yes.
Myrtle Beach police brought Angel in and talked with her about that after the kids had called. And the substance of that conversation was, Ray didn't have anything to do with that. I'm so sick and tired of people blaming Ray for everything that happens.
Because if you're trying to accuse him of anything, then I'm not going to be involved in it. Because I say he didn't, okay? I say he didn't. I'm not accusing him. I'm not, yeah, you are.
Despite Angel's denials, police take a deeper look at Ray Moody.
They were able to get a search warrant at Sunset Lodge, which is hotel / long-term rental. Raymond was staying at that area when Brittanee had gone missing.
Select crime scene technicians with help from Myrtle Beach Police and the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office searched an apartment at the Sunset Lodge south of Georgetown today.
They were looking for anything that would tie Ray to Brittanee Drexel. They went out and talked with Ray at his cabinet shop. And they told him they were searching for Brittanee Drexel. And he said, "You're smart, you'll figure it out."
After years with no leads, Ray Moody is a suspect in the disappearance of Brittanee Drexel. Detectives are questioning him after his daughter reported her suspicions about him to the police.
That investigation, that part of it, the search warrant, yielded nothing fruitful. There wasn't enough to arrest him.
Once again, the case goes cold. It's now been 7 years since Brittanee vanished on a spring break trip to Myrtle Beach.
I can tell you it felt like a roller coaster ride. That's what it felt like. You know, ups and downs. They would get tips and then it'd be like, oh, you know, maybe she's getting located or whatever the case may be. And then there was false hope. And then that really kills you inside, you know, because they're like, you're just like, is she ever going to be found?
The 4th or 5th year into her disappearance, she wasn't coming back. I'm like, I know she's gone.
It's a strange feeling to have to switch, looking for, you know, somebody physically here, and now we're just looking for, you know, what's left. And that, I think, was the worst thing I've ever gone through, emotionally, the worst thing I've ever felt.
Law enforcement would call me and I would talk to them, and this went on for years.
I spent, I can't tell you how many hours just on the internet doing research. I obsessed over watching the video of Brittanee walking in and out of the hotel. I would slow it down to see if there was anything that I could pick up on. I would speed it up. I mean, I watched at all different angles. I couldn't watch it enough because I always felt like I was missing something.
Then, in August 2016, Brittanee's mother, Dawn, gets a phone call that promises to provide the answers she's been desperate for.
The FBI had called me. They wanted me to come down so they could talk to me. And they brought me into a conference room. We all sat down.
An informant trying to get help with his prison sentence said, "Well, don't you want to know information about the little girl that went missing?"
The informant is an inmate named Taquan Brown, serving a 25-year prison term for manslaughter. He claims that he witnessed a man named Timothy Deshaun Taylor rape and kill Brittanee.
He tells the story that Brittanee Drexel had been kidnapped in Myrtle Beach, was brought to a house near McClellanville, and she had been tortured and all sort of terrible stuff. And he was over there and had saw all of this stuff, and she had ran out the back door, and they had called her and brought her back in and killed her.
So I was just sitting there sobbing, and I couldn't even talk. I couldn't do it. The FBI told me she tried to escape and she ran out. They went to go get her, brought her back, and then they ended up shooting her. And then they rolled her up in a blanket or a rug and then threw her in an alligator pit. And I walked out of there and I'm like, oh my God. We always had kept hope alive that maybe Brittanee was still out there. And that really messed me up, big time. You know, having to picture that in your mind, it's just crazy. You know, to think that someone would do that with my daughter.
Agents furiously work to confirm the details provided by the informant.
Now, what really corroborated his story was Brittanee's cell phone had pinged in an area in the direction of McClellanville.
Even though that's where the inmate claims Brittanee was murdered, investigators know their previous searches in that area were big news stories, and that confidential informants will often say anything in hopes of getting a reduced sentence.
Look, CIs will lie, and I don't use CIs unless I can back up what they're saying.
Timothy Deshawn Taylor is already in jail on separate robbery charges. Authorities work to keep him behind bars while they look for any information that might support the confidential informant's claim. But Dawn believes the awful story could be true.
Dawn did not allow herself any time to mourn. She quickly shifted from, I don't know what happened to my daughter, to where's her body? I want my daughter brought home.
I said, I'm done. I said, I'm done with the bullshit. I said, I want my daughter found. I don't have to wonder where she is anymore.
Seven years after Brittanee Drexel disappeared in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, investigators are looking into a stunning claim by a jailhouse informant that he witnessed a man named Timothy Deshawn Taylor murder her.
All of a sudden, the investigation and the media attention, all of us shift to what the investigators tell us. Listen, if the FBI is up there saying, we got a suspect, we believe that this is what happened, you know, Taylor is under investigation, being charged with armed robbery. And I had the opportunity to confront Taylor about his involvement in this case. Did you do this? And he said, no, I did not.
In August 2016, the Taylor family launches a media offensive, releasing a statement maintaining his innocence. They claim the informant lied to the FBI in attempt to cut a deal for early parole.
That informant said that Brittanee Drexel was buried at a plot in Berkeley County, which is Wellston. Investigators went down there, and once they start digging, and he says, look, she was fed to alligators, she was not buried. Brown later came in and said, all of that was untrue, I lied. So none of that went anywhere, but there were many more like that, false leads.
Police eventually cleared Timothy Deshawn Taylor of any involvement in Brittanee's disappearance. It's another emotionally draining twist for her family and friends.
And by that point, I was so frustrated. I didn't really trust anybody. So after that, I was on the phone with the FBI every week. I mean, they would keep in contact with me, let me know what was going on.
The FBI agents, since 2016 on, were determined to find out what happened and bring my mom that justice that she was grieving and asking for, and the justice that obviously all of us wanted.
I had a meeting with the FBI and some of the law enforcement that was involved in Brittanee's case. I just felt like Brittanee's never going to be found. This is ridiculous. After that, I felt like nothing was going on in Brittanee's case.
Years pass with an investigation that seems to be stalled. Then, in May 2022, 13 years since Brittanee was last seen, once again, there's a phone call out of the blue. And once again, it offers hope.
On a Friday night, I get a call from a defense attorney, Scott Bellamy. He said, well, I've got somebody that's wanting to give you some information. He'll give the information to you, but he won't give it to the police. And I said, well, who is it? And he said, Ray Moody.
It's the same man investigators looked at earlier in the case, when his daughter reported that he may have been involved. Police were unable then to connect him to Brittanee's disappearance. Now, his lawyer claims Moody has a story to tell, but he'll only tell it to state authorities and not the FBI.
He wants to stay in the state system. He does not want to go in the federal system. because he knows he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison, and he wants to be closer to family members. And if you go in the federal prison, you may be in West Virginia, you may be in California.
Where are y'all from? Alabama. Yeah, that's right. I thought, yeah.
Ray Moody sits down with state investigators and begins laying out the details of what he says happened on the night of April 25th, 2009.
Ray said that in 2009, he and Angel had come to Myrtle Beach. They were riding down the boulevard. He said, so a young lady came out of a hotel, and he said that he and Angel were smoking pot, and Ray asked Brittanee, do you want some of this pot? And she said, yeah. Ray said that Brittanee got in the back seat. They went where he and Angel had been camping at the pole yards, and they were just going to hang out there for a while.
We're just having a good time, smoking some pot and stuff, you know. Angel left. And while she was gone, I changed the whole subject, what was going on.
Can you describe the events that happened when Angel leaves? So Angel's obviously not involved. Can you talk us through that?
I made her take her clothes off.
Yeah.
And she was pretty cooperative.
Yeah, she was.
But it was against her will.
It was, yeah. Did she say anything to you specifically at that time?
She said she was she'd tell Angel on me.
And did you start to have sex with her, or did something happen to stop that?
To stop me from having sex?
Yes.
No, I did.
You did?
I raped her.
And he said, she scratched me, I hit her, all of that was over, and he said, then I killed her. He said, I strangled her to death. Ray Moody never showed any remorse, was a very disturbed individual at a deep level. Angel came back and said, where is Brittanee? And he said, you don't see her, do you? And she said, no. He said, well, don't ever ask about her again. The next morning before daybreak, he got up and he said, I dug the hole, buried her body.
Picked her right up and walked out, probably about 150 feet away, more towards the landing, out where they had like grove of trees and stuff growing, and put her underneath the tree.
So we were like, will you take us to her body? Yeah, I'll take you where she's buried. And they put him on a four-wheeler and drove him through. He said, I haven't been here in 13 years, but that's the place.
A search of the area begins on May 11th, 2022.
So once they start digging, there was bones. There was a nose ring, and there was one contact lens. The next day, they had her as Brittanee by her dental records, and then within 2 days, they had DNA that said that is, in fact, Brittanee Drexel.
Brittanee Drexel's family has spent 13 years desperately searching for answers in her disappearance. And now, with a suspect in custody, they finally have them. But their worst fears have been realized.
I was so mad because Raymond Moody had been person of interest back in 2011. He's a level 3 sex offender. He shouldn't even be in Myrtle Beach with all the kids and stuff here, okay? You've got to be kidding me.
The most frustrating part of this whole investigation for me is I learned that the day after Brittanee Drexel went missing, they pulled Raymond Moody over. When you get a speeding ticket, it came up that he was a registered sex offender. He has scratches on his face. There's a missing girl in town. It doesn't take a genius to say, hey, wait a second. Maybe we should take this guy in. Maybe we should look at him. Nobody batted an eye. She was the perfect target. You know, we hear from him, oh, she wanted to party, she wanted to get in the car and smoke weed. From the friends and family that I've spoken to, Brittanee Drexel could not stand the smell of marijuana. She would not smoke marijuana. She would not even date a guy who smoked marijuana. And if Raymond Moody said that he lured her to the car with marijuana, Raymond Moody's lying. It's incomprehensible to me that this guy got away with what he got away with.
I will accept your plea to murder, criminal sexual conduct in the first degree, and to kidnapping.
October 19th, 2022, Raymond Moody pleads guilty to murder, rape, and kidnapping. He is sentenced to life in prison with an additional 2 consecutive terms of 30 years. His girlfriend, Angel, is not charged with any crime.
The driving force to keep this case hot was Dawn Drexel. She was hitting a lot of the same obstacles the police were, but she constantly came back into town, constantly looking, constantly calling. And even though it had to be excruciating, this is something that she has had to endure for 13 years to make sure that she got answers. And as terrible as those answers are, she stuck it out and she got them. And I don't think it would have been possible but for her persistence. She didn't allow anybody to forget about Brittanee.
Dawn is a complete icon to me because I don't know how mentally, health-wise, I could have handled it.
That strength from me, I think I felt like I had to find her.
Until we reunite with my sister, Brittanee, we will feel we got the answers we wanted, but it will never fill that missing piece in our family. She's still gone.
Brittanee was just a beautiful person, and she would do anything for anyone.
About a month before everything happened, it was my birthday party. We all went to dinner with my parents, and we just had an absolute blast. Brittanee was laughing and having fun. She ordered this obnoxious steak, and Brittanee was 110 pounds soaking wet. So my dad was like, "Are you sure, kid?" and was really eyeing her, and she's like, "Yeah, and I want a grasshopper milkshake too." Personality, her love of life, her infectious attitude, her smile, her laugh, her goofiness. There's nothing I don't miss.
My sister was very kind and caring. She would never hurt us all. And that's something that we're missing from the world now. And this world is such full of hate that I hope one day it can be peaceful for all of us.
Sometimes I'll go back and look at video of her when she was younger. And I do look at her pictures a lot, but, her memory will always be in my heart, I'll always remember the good times I had with her.
Ôi chết cũng dẻo được. Ngon đấy, để ngấm rồi. Đầu quá nhanh. Uống nhạt nhạt thôi chưa ngủ được. Uống đặc quá chưa mất ngủ đấy chị sợ. Tối thì mất ngủ được tối. Cái này để sau rồi bên. Rồi đấy là xì cho. Nhớ vào xì đít cho. Chết mẹ rồi. Máy mình nhớ ra là còn chưa cài cái gì không chịu đấy. Tính cài chưa? Không chữ gì vậy? Cái tầm mờ chứ có gì đâu. Cái tập lúc nào vậy? Đặt chiếc cái nào sau này được, vẫn là cái sau đúng không? Cái khác mình làm 3 loại cái nào cũng ở bên dưới. Rồi, đảm bảo cái này này, của em này. Trời ơi. Vô xấu đi. Thế em với thằng kia làm có cái phiêu phết đấy. Đu vào Cho anh em ở đâu xuống luôn. Kéo được. Đây là cái chữ rồi. Phải viết chữ rồi. Cái online